So, I watched Huzbin Hotel and I have a very controversial opinion about the second season of the series. Today I want to share with you. Get ready for a lot of spoilers, so let's get it started. Subscribe to the channel and give it a like. As always, your favorite Fox on the microphone. If you've done everything, let's move on the main part. So, where do I begin? The plot of the episode is extremely illogical. It all begins with the hotel seemingly doing business and already having guests, but the problem is they all think the hotel is there to kill angels. Charlie deliciously tries to explain that they are thinking the wrong way and the hotel purpose is simply to redeem their souls. It also reveals that the reason plot is about VOX insisting the rest of the V's to invade the heaven and take it by force. And the first episode is supposed to set the tone of the entire season, and it does so, and it feels quite good. In the second episode we see a conflict between in heaven. The angels release they can now be overwhelmed, since their weakness is now known to all hell, looting additional and want revenge for Adam's murder. Also, Gravity, in my opinion, is one of the best hotel songs and sounds pretty cool and epic. At the end of the second episode we seem to have another line of conflict emerging and a new protagonist potential, Lute. For a moment, Lute was one of those characters I really wanted to follow and see how this whole conflict would play out. Besides that, we got a glimpse into Serpentia's backstory, and that was pretty good. The third episode is simply the height of Charlie idiocy. So, VOX is actively promoting the idea that Charlie is a dictator and that the hotel doesn't work. He says hotel is useless and Charlie doesn't care about anyone who works there. But Charlie isn't stupid, is she? She wouldn't invite her enemy into the media to prove otherwise, and prove herself right. She invites VOX to the hotel and literally digs up dirt on herself, then commits her stupid move to redeem Angela. Here, I want to say that Angel is probably one of the best written characters in the Huzbin Hotel. So essentially, the episode is about Charlie trying to redeem him, but at the same time we see that she's simply humiliating the spider. Poor Angel. So essentially, she's handing VOX the dirt he wanted. Let's say she was emotional. Okay, let's assume that. Let's move on. In episode 4, the truth is revealed that Alistair's soul is possessed by Rosie, and this wasn't a bad plot twist. In episode 4 we get two versions of Don't You Forget, and they sound good, but they clearly don't measure up to Gravity. Alistair planned to lose the battle with V's, and he did. Okay, so battle between V and Alistair is portrayed quite well. In the same episode, the deer starts to nag TV, saying he's achieved something simply by begging help, and VOX essentially celebrates his victory over Alistair by tormenting him in every way. And then in episode 5 we see VOX speak his song and how he convinces the inhabitants of hell to follow him. Let's just remember that many people came to support him, and miraculously it worked. Veggie asked Lucifer to go and harass VOX so that TV doesn't go crazy with power and permissionless. And yes, their song VOX Purple, which is quite good and spectral, is real no matter how much Lucius would like to. He simply can't harm the sinners because he doesn't particularly love them, and in theory his punishment is to rot with those he created. This is where Vivienne's big plot problem comes into play, and it's really a big one. Lucifer is one of the loudest names they are afraid to say out loud. Yes, he has limitations, but he could manipulate those he created, like he was sins, could charm the sinners, he could somehow influence VOX not directly but through in different manners and harm him so recklessly, which could make Lucifer a rather difficult challenge for VOX and his plan. In episode 6, after all this, we are sort of shows that VOX was the manipulator, who was encouraging Carmine to build machine that could break down the doors of heaven and was manipulating the safety of her girls. So what do you think will happen next? We were shown that VOX actually hypnotized Angel, who was leaking all the information to him. Yes, so the spy wasn't the snake, but the spider who was leaking absolutely all information from the hotel directly to the TV demon, and it looked pretty cool at the time. Episode 7. First, I want to point out Brighter as a song that sounds really cool, but there is a question: if VOX turned out to be the same kind of maniac as Alistair, what's the difference between them? Well, that's a good question I will pose, and this I will give you an answer, at least I try. Right away, regarding the question posed, it's hard to say. For me, VOX isn't a guy from New Orleans who takes people laughs for fun. He's a TV shark. It would be much more interesting if VOX drove the host crazy with the actions, blackmailing them, leaking dirt on them, and they simply cute. In other words, literally showing that his manipulative streak emerged during the lifetime, not only in hell after his death, and that twist will be much more interesting. This particular twist to me is pretty strange, and it's like saying we are already seen this with Alistair. And yes, our dear is biting our TV again. How can you understand that? But how did Baxter become a friend of the hotel? It's a good and frankly strange question, because why I even ask it? Baxter become friend now, and that's it. V even wants to leave VOX because he's become a complete jack who doesn't care about anyone, and that's okay, right? And so we reach the final episode, episode 8. Our team of course come up to the plan, which bugs a nifty hack VOX servers, and Charlie reveals that Snake has been resurrected, but in heaven, and that redemption is possible, and blah blah blah. And yes, oddly enough, it worked, and I will be honest, the battle between Alistair and VOX was cool and cute, beautiful, and blah blah blah, but I don't think the final with the song and the Candace and peace saved everyone ending. And VOX was also dumped, which we will discuss later in a separate chapter. You know, for some reasons I always liked the villains in X-Men stories a little more than the heroes. Of course, I don't condone their actions, but villains usually have some defining moments that shape their characters and give them room to develop, unlike the heroes, who sometimes barely change throughout the story. I will give you an example. Our first example is Megamind, Megamoth, who has been all the hype lately. He grew up in prison and spent his whole life being taunted that heroes are bad and evil is good. His motivation is quite clear, and I like the fact that at some point Megamind realizes that after retiring as a macho man, there is no point to become villain anymore. He falls in love with a girl, then starts to mend his ways, and in the end, he becomes a hero for the city. I really like his journey and how he evolves throughout the film. VOX is one of those villains who was quite interesting to follow at first. He was portrayed as manipulative, rather savvy guy who would do anything to gain power and get his way. Yes, his backstory is similar to Alistair, but it shows he wanted to get the way to kill for that reason, not for pleasure. VOX became prime in the first 5 episodes. He find Alice, capture Lucifer and Alistair, and nominally defeat them. He instantly becomes the most powerful sinner in hell. He has an audience that he constantly hypnotized and makes loyal to him, and it was quite interesting to watch such a manipulator. When the angel flew to hell with apologize, he showed that he can quickly and essentially adapt to current events. He is also an expected showman who was spent many years working with audience and is good for his job, but the way he was instantly betrayed was simply hilarious. When I watched VOX being ditched, I was quite surprised. It felt like the character was simply dumbed down when interaction with Charlie due to the sudden decline in intelligence. He pauses the way his chaos like V and Velvet acts logically, doesn't push the play many guards on the servers, he deliberately needs attack Alistair and destroy half of the city with a laser. This moment when he wants to win at any cost, but his litany of stupid and logical actions ruins the whole picture. First I was point that characters will simply behave logically, so let's start with the Baxter. I don't understand how he becomes the best friend of the whole total because his interactions with the characters are simply not shown. Well, he talked to Cherry, was made for Jimmy O bucks for Nifty, okay, but why is he risking life, his job, his career, and like he didn't show the much interactions with the other characters? Well, to be fair, he worked with Sir Pintius, and even then, they were rivals of sorts who went their separate ways. As for Charlie in Season 2, she a complexly different character. Consider her in Season 1, she will goal-oriented and really want to reform sinners, but in Season 2 she just yells and wins, constantly comparing about how I can't redeem everyone the Sir Pintius way, or something like VOX called me a dictator and blah blah blah. VOX was simply taken and humiliated because the god heroes should win. Lucifer, let's be honest, he is made stupid. This character is canon in the Bible, he fed Evie the apple, which is why people were thrown to earth, and what's the bottom line? He's just weak. Honestly, I can't even accept the excuse that he can't harm sinners correctly. But no one said he can't do it without his own hands. Dude is literally king of hell, and you have limitations. Yes, you created the gaiety and the scenes, you have influence, but he doesn't use it. Imagine how cool it would be if VOX caught Lucifer, but both before and after his capture, Lucifer would intervene VOX plans indirectly, and then there was Owl, who not only folded to VOX but also Trevor's partner in the work. Husker Dust, we were simply told about this, and now they're throwing in our faces like, well, we not hint anymore. What can we conclude about the season? It's going to be stronger than the first, maybe yes, but the problem is that the plots are extremely childish. Vivian could have created a rather serious animated series, stuck in serious themes like good and evil, why some people go to hell and others don't, and there could have been tons of such questions. Science religion is a very old topic and very interesting, and Hazbin simply can't handle even its volume. All I can say is that despite having enormous potential for development and enormous potential for plot and exploration, the animated series simply threaded in childish themes, and that's it. Plus, we can see the potential is enormous, but the execution is simply terrible.